This is how the diverter runs into the filter bucket. You can see how the filter bucket is catching most of the dirt and rubbish. Nice clean water coming out the front of the filter bucket and down the hole. If the filter bucket overflows, it overflows into that lid, which has extra holes, so you get a bit of extra drainage. Over the other side of the yard, we've got the second rain barrel. That's got a diverter tap on it, so I can direct water into the rain barrel or out of it. Those two holes that you can see in the top, there's a stormwater drain directly below it, so at the moment I've just got them as overflows. Eventually there'll be another rain barrel just on the right there, but for the moment it's just been hooked up and that's what it's doing. This is the courtyard as it is at the moment. What I've done is I've moved the NFT system from this wall over here to this wall over here. The reason for it is that this new position is the south facing wall, so the lettuces get a lot more protection, and while I was at it I decided to rebuild the first rail and add a second rail, and what I've done is I've gone with standardised fittings. These fittings here go from square to standard round 90mm. I did this one first and I just put an end plug in it, an end plug which I glued in, and then I thought that was a bit silly. How am I going to flush this thing out if I want to flush it out? Because I'll have to come in through here. That's no good, so what I did was, in the second one, I put a slight angle in it and I didn't glue that in. Now the angle's not glued in either, but that stops any leaks. These square fittings here, they leak a little bit, but essentially what you do is you glue them in and then you run a silicone bead around it and that stops any leaks. It also gives me this nice little lip up here so that I can put the entry tubes, or the entries for the tubes, in the end piece rather than the main channel. There's 14 or 15 slots in each of these channels. The first one I put 15 in it, and then I decided that's just a little bit too cramped, so I put 14 in the second one. It's they're both 8 inches on a centre, which is 200mm, the metrically minded. Now the reason I went with standard fittings is because that makes it easy for me to do the drains. What I've done here is I've just gone into a standard 90mm angle with a 90mm T-piece and a couple of short joiner pieces, and it just plugged in. I didn't have to do anything with it. That's got an open drain through a reducer which flows into a double Dutch bucket. Now the reason that I've used the double Dutch bucket with a pot in the top is because it acts as a triple filter, and the pot does a first stage aeration. The drain from the inner bucket does a second stage aeration. The drain from the inner bucket to the outer bucket does a third stage aeration, and then I've got the pipe flowing down to the reservoir, which does a fourth stage aeration. Now you might be wondering about that pot in the top. Now if I want to adjust the pH, all I do is I put that bag in there. That's got some superphosphate in it. Now that drain will just dribble all over the superphosphate, which will dissolve the phosphorus, which lowers the pH. It's just like putting in phosphoric acid. Now if I want to do the same thing with bicarbonate of soda to raise the pH, it's easy. I just put a spoonful into a 2 litre container and then add a little bit through that pot, and I don't have to get all the way down and aim through those holes in the top of the reservoir. Makes life much easier. Now since I last showed you this system, I've switched nutrients to a dry nutrient which is used by the farmers out west here. It's Campbell's tomato blend, and it's the equivalent of MHPGardener's master blend, except for it's a little bit light on phosphorus, which is why I can use superphosphate for reducing the pH on this system. Since I've added it, these lettuces have taken off. Like this one here has doubled in size in 2 days. It's just, they're really going well. It's made an incredible difference since I stopped using the nutrients from the hydro store. Now over here, I'll just show you how this works. That's a rain barrel which comes out of a diverter. It's up on the spout on the garage. Comes down through the standard old insect screen cover cut in the top of the barrel, or the barrel lid, and below there's a stormwater drain, so it makes it very easy for me to get overflows. There's the overflow valves. Not much of a valve at the moment, just a couple of holes that are cut for 40mm pipe, but that's where my overflow goes. And this is my NFT reservoir, and this is my Dutch bucket reservoir, which comes back over to the Dutch bucket setup. The NFT system's just turned on, so that's what the drain looks like. It's just going through the open thing, splashing around in that nice deep pot that I've got sitting in the bucket lid, which is, that's actually copied from how I made the deep water culture buckets. And it dribbles down there and into the reservoir. Now those two holes I'll put yellow tape over them at some stage. At the moment they're not doing much harm.